Hey yo, welcome back to another episode of the most authentic and nuanced holistic health and fitness podcast, hosted by your favorite crunchy strength and conditioning coach. I'm Kelsey Moore, and today's company is Hayden Florence. Hayden is an active duty captain in the U.S. Army, but is in the process of transitioning out of the military due to back injuries. During his tenure, he has completed Ranger School, Combat Dive School, Jungle School, the Special Forces Qualification course, but now is learning what life after the military will look like managing his back pain. He created ProSpine Fitness, functional fitness workouts that help clients and tactical athletes have a progressive approach in the weight room. So in December, you guys are thinking about going back to Texas?
Yeah. We're just, with getting out of the military and everything like that, starting to make that transition. So,
Yeah. Were you afforded a skill bridge, like a 6-month internship?
so the medical board getting out when you get out due to an injury, you don't necessarily get that. So they start with the VA claims process first. So that's currently where I'm at. So I'm going to all my doctor's appointments and doing the whole VA claim.
Okay.
And then on the back end, there's like 30 days for transition. And that's where you can kind of get into a skill, but they don't really allot you a skill bridge time. So it's honestly, yeah, it's a little stressful because it's like I don't have this like 6-month period to go find a new job. It's like, oh, I'm injured, like go to your VA process and then like get out of the military, like you're not our problem anymore. So yeah, little stressful. So
That's definitely a little stressful. Are you still
yeah.
technically like active duty right now, or are you not?
Yeah, I am, and I'll be active duty. So we do VA claims process, 30 days of transition, then I get 60 days of leave, and then on that end of the 60-day, I'm like done, and
Okay.
I'm not the Army's problem anymore. So
Yeah. Yeah. Oh
yeah,
my gosh. Are you excited for your sense of freedom, or are you still kind of in the middle of like figuring out how you feel about everything?
yeah. I mean, it's a little bittersweet, right? Like I got injured unexpectedly. Like I didn't really see this coming. So I wanted to keep doing the things that I was doing. So I was like really disappointed. I didn't get to do any of that. We talk about that more if you want.
Sure.
But I am like now starting to like look forward to all this stuff, like a new job. I'm excited. We're going back to Texas. It'll be really nice to be close to family again. Not being gone for extended periods of time. I've got a couple friends who made it through the course and everything, and they just had kids, and they're on a deployment after deployment, and they're not really around. So we just had our son Lane. He's 7 months, almost 8 months now, and yeah, it's super nice being home pretty much every day with him. It's cool to like watch all of the little traits that they have because they'll pick up a bunch of different stuff, and it's everyone wants to be there for your kids' first steps and the first words. Like those are the big milestones, but like watching him like not be able to use his hands and then he can use his hands, like all that stuff is super cool. So
Yeah, I can imagine like going from all the schooling, like which we'll talk about. I'd love for you to tell your story, but being, you were gone probably so much throughout that huge pipeline you had to do, and then all of a sudden you're home pretty much all day. I'm assuming
yeah,
that must have been 180-degree difference of just like rhythms of your life and with your wife and
yeah.
all of that. I can only imagine.
Yeah, and I'm not like one to like sit around the house
Hmm.
and do anything. And it's like a little bit of like friction because
Hmm.
I want to constantly be doing stuff. And then it's just like I'm trying to fill myself with time. So
Yeah.
that's kind of where like the whole birth of ProSpine came from
Yeah.
because like I'm trying to find stuff to do with my time. I'm super passionate about helping people and coaching. Coaching in my family has always been like a thing. All the men pretty much have been high school football coaches or something like that of that nature. So yeah, I love coaching in general. And then I found this need for people with back injuries who want to work out. So you take your CrossFitters who have gotten injured, military, fire, police,
Hmm.
anyone who is really trying to be athletic and do a little bit more, but have these routine back injuries. I always say, like, if you're injuring your back, if you're not in the gym because of a back injury, at least 10 days out of the year, that's pretty much not acceptable. And you need to address that some way or another, whether it's a deadlift or whatever. But
Yeah.
that's kind of where we take off. Is all my programming is built around those who want to be athletic or need to perform for their jobs and don't want to have those back injuries. So
Awesome. Yeah, I can tell you're super passionate about it, you know?
Yeah.
And I love that because it's such a niche. And I think when you're working in the world of strength and conditioning, like that's obviously, especially in the tactical population, that's probably one of the number one issues that you see over and over again, or maybe knees, maybe a little bit more popular. But, you do see it all the time. And, for better, for worse, the only spine specialist that's out there is technically going to be a chiropractor. And those just,
Yeah.
old school chiropractic is so, archaic, and progressive chiropractic care is great, but it's definitely not covered by TRICARE, nor is it allotted within, all of those military pipelines. So you have to kind of outsource,
Yeah.
which I think we both go to the same chiropractor. Do you see Savannah here in town?
Yeah, honestly, Savannah's great, and I have a whole rant on chiropractors if you want to hear it. But
Oh,
um,
we'll get there.
yeah,
Yeah, I want to, because I'm sure you saw a lot of them throughout your time. But
yeah,
okay, I promise we'll get there. But can you, going kind of back to like your athletic background, can you just kind of talk about like how you grew up? Obviously, you've been
yeah,
in fitness for a while, just like anecdotally, and then what made you want to join the military and what jobs you've had until now.
yeah. So as a kid, I played pretty much every single sport. I would just rotate whatever season it was that like
Hmm.
was the sport I was playing. So soccer, baseball, football, track and field, all of those. In high school, I really kind of settled on football and track and field, and I liked football more, but I was way more talented at track and field. I was a 400-meter runner, um, relatively fast. I was really strong, honestly, and my high school was like super athletic. There are several guys on my like junior senior team that are like in the NFL now. Like the numbers, it was just like an outlier year. But I was always trying to keep up with those guys, and
Yeah.
my upper body was so small. I don't think I benched 200 pounds until like senior year, but I was squatting like way more than I should have been. So I got really fast, and so
Hmm.
I did really well at the 400-meter, and that translated into football speed and all of that. So I got really into that whole community, and I love sports. I love competing. I love all of that. And then that's kind of where everything from the Army took off. I wanted a similar community as a lot of the Army guys do. I wanted to go to college, needed a way to pay for college. So
Hmm.
I went to Texas A&M University on a ROTC scholarship. They paid for college, and then I went infantry from there. Um, you want me to go in the Army background?
Yeah.
You want to hear that
So
story?
yeah, because wherever you guys were stationed in Hawaii, right?
Yeah, yeah. So first
Okay,
duty
that's what I
station.
thought. Okay. So
Yeah,
then did you start training for best ranger when you were an infantry officer?
yeah. So that kind of fell into my lap.
Okay.
Yeah. So we went through. Let's see here. I guess I went to Ranger School right after iBullock. So graduated A&M, went to iBullock, immediately went to Ranger School Airborne, and then we moved out to Hawaii as my first duty station. So yeah, I really feel bad for me. You know, it was a tough place to live, but yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, we get out there, and it's like the first year or so I've been there, and we had done some like physical stuff, you know, some rucks and some PT
Sure.
tests and some stuff like that. And a buddy of mine, he was like out doing the best ranger thing, and his partner got hurt, and then they had tryouts and nobody showed up for the tryouts. And then he like texted me and he was like, hey man, like we need someone to come do this thing, like are you interested? And I was like, at the time I was worried about my cardio because I was not much of a runner. Like I said, I was a
Mhm.
football and more of a strength athlete, but hadn't focused really on much of the cardio. I'm like, dude, like I could probably do this, but like you get me on a
Mhm.
10-mile run and like I don't really know how I'll do.
Mhm.
uh, and he was kind of the opposite. He was a cardio guy that found strength and conditioning later on, but his cardio was like through the roof. So we balanced each other out really well.
Yeah.
So I went, competed in Best Ranger, uh, and then came back, and then I was on the team the next year, which happened to be COVID. So we went to Georgia, and then the competition got canceled,
Oh.
and then the third year I actually came back and coached the team because I had
Oh,
just gotten
very
back from
cool.
selection. Yeah, so I
Cool.
finished selection and then came back and coached.
So, I work for the Air Force and I think we're allotted one team every year. And we were training up a team
Yeah,
when I was at Fort Riley. And then I think they had to kind of do like a like competition to choose which Air Force pair they were going to accept into the Best Ranger competition.
Yeah,
And my team didn't get selected to
yeah.
go to the competition. But man, my guys were working like freaking dogs out there. We were pretty
Well,
excited, but
yeah.
it doesn't work out. But my current coach George, he trains teams up all the time for Best Ranger, and it's no joke. So how long was your train up for that? And did you connect
Ooh.
with a coach there, like when you were in Hawaii, or how did that work?
Yeah, so in Hawaii, it was pretty cool. We got kind of released to do it on our own, but we had a former winner, First Sergeant Briggs, who, if
Cool.
anyone is involved in the Best Ranger community, you probably know who he is. He's won it like 3 times. Um, so he was there with us and he helped coach the team. And he
Hmm.
had a track background. He ran at the University of Tennessee. He was
Cool.
mostly a 10K runner, but a decathlete and
Hmm.
a bunch of other stuff. Before he joined the army, he was one of the firemen that jump out of planes, firefighter. He was like one of those dudes, and they're
Oh,
all like,
interesting. Wow. Okay.
yeah. So he had a really interesting story, but like phenomenal athlete and
Hmm.
knew a lot about the conditioning world as far as it comes to running and stuff. So
Cool.
he was our primary coach who led us through everything. So, and Best Ranger is interesting because it's a combo of strength, conditioning, but there's a lot of skill to it as well. The competition changes every year, kind of like the CrossFit competition does,
Hmm.
but there are some general reoccurring events that you can practice for.
Cool. Yeah, I was gonna say I knew it was like pretty like, you know, task heavy. Like you have to be
Mhm.
able to perform. What are they called? RTTs.
Yeah,
Right?
that's
What
yeah.
does that
They're
stand
like
for?
the ranger tasks
Yeah.
basically.
Are
Um,
those the things that you're being tested on, like within the physical events at Best Ranger? I sometimes I follow it, but not a ton.
Yeah. So for anyone who doesn't know what Best Ranger is, it's a 72-hour continuous event. And I mean continuous. Like there is you don't stop to sleep for 72 hours. The only rest you actually get is if you finish an event somewhat early, then you can lay down at the end of the event before the next one starts. So it's heavily endurance based, right? Um, typically the first day starts with a lot of high volume stuff. So you'll start with like a 10-mile run, and then you go into an obstacle course, and then you'll get like a really heavy carry. Like you'll get a litter with like 180 pounds on it, and you and your partner have to carry it for 2 miles. And then there might be some type of shooting on day one as well, where you go into a sniper range, and then you have an M4 shoot, and you have a pistol shoot and shotgun. So that's kind of day one. Day two, or I guess all night, there's like a ruck that goes all night long, and then day two is all the tasks. So
Okay.
there's like a rock climbing wall. There's weapons. So can you like load, clear a malfunction on a weapon? Can you throw a grenade? Can you uh, evacuate a casualty? There's a bunch of, and they switch those out every year. Some are kind of consistent, some aren't. And then day three kind of circles back to a little bit more endurance stuff. So there will be like an all night land nav test. And then there's a water portion where it's like a water obstacle course, and then some type of run at the end to finish it all off.
Cool.
So,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
incredible. So you did it twice, coached it once.
Did it. I was a part of it twice. So I did it once, and then I was on the team, and then it got canceled for
Gotcha.
COVID, and then I coached it once. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Okay, so you're an infantry officer, did all those fun things, cool things, went to selection. Then you were in the SF pipeline to become a
Mhm.
Green Beret. And when did you injure your back one time, or was it multiple iterations that kind of built up over time?
Yeah, it was kind of multiple stuff that came on, and then there were like a few other injuries. But I think some of it started with a little bit of the Best Ranger. That's kind of when I started noticing it, but I wasn't
Okay.
educated enough on it at the time. So I had this like nerve thing going on, but it was kind of in my butt or in my glute.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was told, oh, it's piriformis syndrome. You need to stretch this muscle out. But
Mm-hmm.
uh, yeah, the warning lights were going off that it's a bulging disc pushing on my nerve. And that's where that pain was coming from
Mm-hmm.
because it was right before I started getting sciatic pain. And then, yeah, I went through the captain's career course with your husband, which that was great. But that was a lot of sitting.
Yeah.
I mean, 100%, I attribute a lot of that to the actual injury because I went from high mileage doing all this stuff to I sat for 6 months, like nine to
Mm-hmm.
five, just sitting in the same spot. And then it's just one day you turn around and you're doing all this high mileage,
Yeah.
high volume training in the Q course. So all those injuries that I wasn't really dealing with at the time immediately flared up and started giving me some issues. And then it was once I got into SUT, small unit tactics, and we were carrying heavier rucks, I I fell a few times in the night, and then my back just buckled. Yeah, so I have 4 damaged discs and 2 herniated discs, kind of from all of that, from the falls, and yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was like crippling pain for a while. I was on bed rest for about 4 months, and I like literally couldn't move. Sleeping was super painful. I mean, like you name it, I basically
Yeah.
couldn't do anything. So that was
Were you
hard.
on some pretty high powered drugs? I was curious if they just drugged you up in order to manage it, or we.
Yeah,
The reason why I ask that is sometimes like with the guys that I see in it, somewhat similar things. There is a high percentage of service members who get addicted to their pain medications,
yeah,
because the rehab isn't as progressive as it could be, so they just try to dull the pain. So I was just curious if you had an experience with any of that.
yeah. I'm a like very good, I guess, like student or whatever, or patient, very good patient for
Mm-hmm.
the doctors. And I didn't really want to take any pain meds,
Mm-hmm.
so I took a gabapentin, which is like a supposed to be non-addictive. Didn't work as well though
Mm-hmm.
at actually dealing with the pain.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, like I was just kind of okay with being in like an extreme amount of pain for months and months on end, and I was convinced I could fix my back through like some type of fitness and
Yeah.
movement. So I was just constantly reading like, how can I fix this? How can I fix this? And I was studying. There's a bunch of different schools of thought. There's the McKinsey method, and
Mm-hmm.
Stuart McGill is really popular, and there's all these other
Mm-hmm.
treatment methods, and kind of trying to figure out what works, what didn't work. I've seen a lot of physical therapists. I mean, a lot of physical therapists, a lot of chiropractors,
Yeah.
trying to deal with all of that. But yeah, I didn't have too much issue with the medicine.
Yeah. Okay, so talk maybe some pros and cons of your experience working with PT and chiropractors, and you can give some of like the best things that you pulled from them and some of maybe the worst. And then yeah, let's just start there. We can dive down other rabbit holes later.
Yeah. Let's start with physical therapists first. In general, I am a huge fan of physical therapists. I think what they do is very important. And I think most of them are really good at their job for the most part. Now, one thing with physical therapists that you have to understand is you walk in with like one entry. Like I would go in with my back, and they're not they study the whole body and they're educated on how to fix it all. And typically, physical therapists will get some other, like after they graduate from school, some type of credentials or other education on different types of injuries.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the most popular one is the McKinsey method. You'll get a lot of physical therapists that are McKinsey trained, which is very good. Honestly, it works for about 70% of the population, doing his tactics and techniques or treatment techniques. Works for most people, but like I was one, it did not work for it. Actually, it made my pain a lot worse. And this
Mm-hmm.
is where I got a little frustrated working with some of the physical therapists is
Yeah.
they were biased to that treatment method, and they're like, oh, if we keep doing this, it'll work. And so every time I go in, they would give me this treatment method, and it would cause pain during the session, and it would cause pain leaving, and I'd be in more pain afterwards. And so it just comes down to it. It's like physical therapists or coaches, whoever it is, they need to listen to your body. They need to adapt to what's working and what's not. And
Mm-hmm.
then are they biased to a certain treatment method or not? So it took me a while to find a physical therapist who was willing to try a bunch of different methods and just abandoned like, okay, like I am McKinsey trained, but like this is not working. Let's go another direction. And so once I kind of found some people to work with like that, I started seeing way better results. It took months though. I mean, six months or so. And part of it was backs are uh, very slow healing. You don't get a lot of blood flow to the disc, and it takes a long time for that inflammation to clear out. So it's one of the reasons it took so long to actually get some relief there.
Yeah. So are you talking PTs that were primarily on like your human performance teams
Yeah.
was it within the SWIC program? Was that who you were
Yes.
primarily seeing? Okay.
Yeah. So I saw about 3 of them there. One of them was, I would say, slightly better than the rest, or I favored because of her ability to,
Mm-hmm.
uh, abandon one method that wasn't working and go to something else.
Sure.
I did get assigned some like local people here, like where we live, and I would go see them kind of on my own that had no affiliation with the military. And
Yeah.
then there was a physical therapist for my specific unit, um, and that was honestly the worst experience I had. It was that one was he was older than the rest, and um, it was all pain relief. Like, how can we just get you out of pain? And it was just, let's lie in this position. Don't work out. Don't move.
Yeah.
Lay here. Like, drink some water. Like, the pain will go
Yeah.
away. And like, that was like laying down in bed rest was not what I needed. I needed to move. I needed to walk. I needed to do some other stuff. I mean, one, mental health and just to feel like I was doing something. But I mean, two, basically, from what I've learned from treatment, you'll get better results uh, doing a movement-based therapy than just laying down and doing nothing.
For sure. Yeah.
So
then when did you start seeing chiropractors?
yeah, so I had started seeing chiropractors before my injuries got really, really bad.
Okay.
And the chiropractors I saw were, I mean, chiropractors cash-based that you could just walk into. And there's pros and cons there. So a chiropractor, and I would say I would warn people of this, like caution people of this now. If you walk into a chiropractor and they look at you for 5 minutes, they crack your back and they leave, I would stop going to that chiropractor. Personal advice, I mean, they're not assessing you. So Savannah is great because she'll go in, you can have a full conversation with her, talk to her, but she doesn't just crack your back and then you like magically feel better. She cracks your back, but she gives you a plan as well. Like, let's do these movements, these mobility, this rehabilitation plan. That's what you want if you have a chiropractor. And that's what I would say, go look for it. And those are typically don't accept insurance. So it's cash and they're a little bit more expensive. But the ones that you just walk into, and I don't know, if you just have regular back pain and you just want to go get cracked, there is like some relief that you get from that. That's proven. I'm like, that's fine. But if you have an actual injury and you're trying to recover, I would say go spend the time, spend a little bit of money, get someone that is like they're willing to work with you and is not just going to like crack your back and like send you on your way. So.
Yeah. No, I like asking those questions about just like who you end up seeing because, while I worked for the Air Force, we have very like parallel, like for my full-time job, very parallel setups in regards to like the POTIF program, Preservation of Force and Family, like how, like the government funding for government contractors, and I'm a government contractor to sit in those seats. And, it's just like interesting. I feel like a personal sense of responsibility as a professional to grow within the community that I'm working for or working with, and this has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but like a specific example would be like, I just got one of my first female operators and I feel really a deep sense of responsibility to meet her specific needs because it's just something new that, the particular TACP community has not seen a lot of.
Yeah.
And so when I hear you talk about how you had a physical therapist who was assigned to your unit and arguably made situations worse, and he was maybe a little more archaic with his treatment plan, I want to smack those professionals and say, like, you have an immense responsibility to figure it out because these individuals, like you, for example, like not only is it your life as Hayden, but at the same time, the military has invested literally millions of dollars into you as a warfighting machine, and they're losing that because of this PT not able to help you. Does that make sense? Like it's a huge problem.
I had this argument with myself, and I got really angry for a long period of time because, like, as an Army officer, I was not only thinking of myself, but I would think of like, what does the Army need from me right now? Like, I've been selected. I've gone almost like all the way to the very end of the Q course. They've spent all this money. Like they need me to get healthy. They've already said like, hey, we think you're good enough to go do this thing.
Yeah.
Invested all this time, energy in me. Like they need me to get healthy and do this. So I like tried to work with a plan. I'm like, hey, like this back injury is going to take me minimum 90 days to recover from. I need to go do X, Y, Z. Can I go to language school first? Can I go do this?
Yeah.
And I got told no on all of it, and I got thrown back into training. I got injured even worse, and now like my Army career is like I could not feasibly go back to even the infantry, let alone the SF world, because like I can't carry a ruck and sleep on the ground anymore because like
yeah.
Hey, what was 90 days to the Army? Let me go recover, or I mean
Like,
even longer than that.
What to give you a pause? Like what is like they got thousands of people lined up to do the same thing. Like just and I think that's truly where like people ask about like morale, they talk about camaraderie, they talk about like the buy-in. The reality is like the Army needs to meet those small needs. Could you imagine if they did give you like a 90-day pause? That would have been a game changer. That would that would have changed. Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, like, I love working out. I love fitness and stuff. And the physical aspects of the Q course were like not a stressor for me until I started getting injured. And then the back injury took over, and that became the number one thing I was stressed about in the Q course was how much pain I am in currently. I would get up and talk in front of people and be like, I can't stand right now and talk in front of these people because I'm in so much pain. And yeah, I got really frustrated. But that one physical therapist that was assigned to my unit, he actually like told me to stop coming. He's like, "You're not getting any better. Like, you're done." And I was like, "Dude, what you?
Negligence,
you're a physical therapist, and you just told me to like stop coming. Are you kidding me?"
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I have so many things that like irritated me about that whole program.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, not the SF community, but like the medical treatment that really irritated me.
I think we're probably on the same page there for sure. So I kind of want to ask you like a personal question, I guess, because it sounds like as a high performing individual, sometimes like you can feel really good when things are within your control. Like you have been able to impact your physicality. You became an infantry officer. You were high performing. You did best ranger. You got everything that, think about your first day as a cadet to think about the trajectory. You got it all, right? Like you got your infantry slot, you got your ranger tab, you got you got it all. How is it now that this life change maybe wasn't in your control?
Yeah,
like
no, it was.
have you been having to kind of manage that mentally in a different way? I talk a lot about how like for better or for worse, like we shouldn't get our identity in what we do or how we perform, but like that is so much harder done than said. I would just love to take. I know it's still fresh.
No, yeah, it's.
Where you're at with it.
Yeah, no, honestly, I'm still kind of going through the thick of some of that, but yeah, I had honestly like so many wins in my book. Like, I mean, little things like I went through ranger school without recycling, like all these little wins, and it's hard to not let that stuff become part of your identity. And I don't think I realized how much I let it become a part of my identity until it all got taken away. There was a part. I mean, when I was on, month 8, and I was walking less than 2,000 steps a day before I couldn't. When you get to that point on an injury, I was really thinking like, am I ever going to be able to walk without pain again? Like I'll be able to walk, but like, how many steps in a day can I take? And we just had a kid, and I was like, am I going to be able to like pick him up and play sports with him? Because that's something I really want to do. Is when he's older, like if he wants to play basketball, I want to go outside and play basketball with him. If he wants to play baseball, I want to go throw all day. So all of that was part of my identity, and then it all got taken away and kind of thrown back in my face because I was injured and stuff and unable to complete the Q course, but it's like, okay, you're injured, but now you're a failure. I mean, technically, you failed the Q course. Like, ouch, that hurts. Like, no fun. And then, oh yeah, by the way, you're going to get medically discharged. Your career's over. You have to go through this. You get 30 days of transition, and then we're done with you. Like what? So yeah, no, I mean, it was super hard. I mean, lots of like depression and anxiety, and it comes and goes, and it's like a cycle of just like that's how depression works, right? It's like a cycle. It's like you get really angry with the whole thing, and then you're like, but I'm not that. I'm not a failure. I know that's not who I am. Yes, I failed this one thing, and then it's like you get angry that you can't control the actual circumstances,
Yeah.
and then it spirals, and it's hard. It's really hard to get through that. And I've had like adversity in my life, 100%, lots of personal stuff, but this was like the first thing that like I failed at that was part of my identity.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was difficult
That's
to get
really
through.
hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think honestly, like I really resonate with you on what you're saying, because to some extent, like my husband,
Yeah.
um, but I would say on a personal level, like I feel like I'm a kind of a high achieving person. Like I'm a Tasmanian devil to some extent. I feel like I've blazed my trail and all these different things, but even my latest race that I did, there were certain things that were out of my control. And I remember my husband walking up to me and he was like, in the best and most sincere and loving way, he said, you can't have it all. Like, this is
Yeah.
life. And like, it's so small. Like, I recognize I'm doing this for fun. It's not my livelihood.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just running. But at the same time, as someone who like is used to succeeding, freaking hurts.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's hard, especially like, I don't know. It's like sometimes like, especially when it seems like that thing right there that other people struggle with is my thing. And it's so easy for me to do, but now I can't do that thing anymore. And it's like,
Yeah.
so who am I? What am I? Like, what do I do? Like,
Yeah.
like I feel like runners get this a lot, like, or CrossFitters. No, CrossFitters are the worst. Like I'm a CrossFitter and like they talk, yeah, yeah, yeah. Like they talk about their watts all the time.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's, or, same thing with people say about vegans, right? Like,
It's
oh, you
all,
always know
yeah,
who a
it's
vegan.
all same.
Yeah.
It's identity. Yeah.
Yeah. It's all identity. And it's like, I was like this fitness guy and that was part of who I was. And then like, now I
Yeah.
can't do it again. So it comes down to like, what are your morals? What are your values? Who are you
Sure.
to yourself? And you don't need that validation from other people. And that's something I always have to tell myself.
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean, it's hard no matter what, but like you got to work through that. Having a good support system around you really helps. So,
Yeah.
wife, kids, family, friends, parents, if you got it, whatever you have, it helps with that stuff. And then honestly, being mobile, like moving, working out, getting in the gym, taking care of your mental and physical health is super important and really helps,
Sure.
uh, like get you over that hump. I think, don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure there's some study out there that says working out and physical training was 150% better than therapy. So
Yeah. Yeah. No. I read a latest thing that said I think exercise is I can yeah, like you said, I cannot remember the stat, but it was like exercise was a better form of rehab for depression and anxiety, and it's just
yeah,
yeah, it's pretty crazy.
I think Australia now is starting to prescribe. There's a big push for
They're actually
physical,
prescribing it.
yeah, like physical fitness being the number one treatment for anxiety and depression over therapy or drugs, which is
Yeah.
pivoting from drugs. I think is really important because
Yeah.
nobody likes
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah. Everybody knows I'm a hippie, so I'm not with drugs, so not with
Yeah,
those drugs. Yeah, no.
yeah,
Okay, so this another thing about being a high performing individual is that even when you get a no, you're gonna 1,000% invest your time, energy, and creativity into something new, and so now you have
yeah,
ProSpine Fitness.
yeah.
So, first, I wanted to ask you, what was your undergraduate in? Do you have any plans for, like, do you have formal education in this, or is this anecdotal and something that you're spending like your time on now? Like, give me that background in fitness formally.
Yeah, so formally fitness. So college I was an international studies major with a minor in Spanish. So yeah,
Okay.
no. Took a lot of kines classes because I really, really enjoyed it. So I have a lot of like strength and conditioning classes and fitness classes and all of that. Those are just classes, right? Like no
Sure.
certifications there. Being around it a lot, right? Coaching through like best trainers and stuff. I was always
Yeah.
studying. And then recently I have taken a few programming courses, none of them nationally certified. So there's like Jason Brown's coaching and certification course, Joel Jameson's conditioning course,
Mm-hmm.
a couple of like movement assessment courses.
Yeah.
Uh, Honestly, I'm working with people that I can talk to personally and that are coaches that have been doing it for a long time because I'm seeking more of those mentors of like, hey, what works for you? Like, how do you write your programs? I write programs, I send it to them, they look them over, they send them back to me. We have back and forth discussions. So a lot of one-off certifications, but no national certs. I am looking. I kind of want to get a CPT, just that certified personal trainer.
Yeah.
That one's kind of honestly, I think, a little gimmicky. You do need it if you want to like coach at like a 24-hour fitness. And then I'm probably going to get a, CSCS, which is
Great.
yeah. I know you've got yours and your weightlifting level 2, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is the both of those are awesome. I'd probably like to get. I like weightlifting, but I honestly I don't think I can do it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Snatching and I used to clean a lot, and I do a lot of other stuff now. Just that heavy is not really where I'm at right anymore. So
Yeah. No, I get it. I get it. So let's talk about that. So basically, what things have you decided to be pillars for your programming style? Obviously, your clientele is going to be someone who's had a previous back injury.
yep,
I always like to preface, and I think you mentioned it in kind of our side conversations, was like at this point, most fitness professionals, or at least strength and conditioning coaches know at this point, if you give the average American an MRI, I think it's like 70 to 80% of them are going to have some type of disc degeneration. And that's
yep.
just from wear and tear, but they're asymptomatic. So you really don't need to be doing anything about them. But when you have a client, that wants to work with you, what are some of the things that you like to put in your programs that you feel like are some of the bigger things that you've learned over time?
Yeah, so I've learned back injuries vary a lot. There's a lot to them where they are in the back. I focus mostly on low back, some upper back as well. But it starts first. You got to start where the client currently is. I find pain levels to be the most accurate judge of where they currently are and how long they've been at said pain level.
Mm-hmm.
If it's someone who pulled a deadlift, injured their back, and then they're out for about 10 days and they're going to jump right back into it. It's someone who's very different from a disc herniation and they've been dealing with it for 3 to 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
So first is a proper assessment of what the client actually, or where they're actually at.
Mm-hmm.
From there, it's kind of like a prescription base. What do we need to fix?
Mm-hmm.
If let's go like more severe injuries first. What I like to do is eliminate the pain triggers primarily. So whatever they are, for me, walking was big. It hurt. Any flexion extension in the spine was bad. So I really needed to brace my core. So any doing dishes, pushing a vacuum, anything like that, I really had to get rid of it for a while. Um, so eliminate your pain triggers, and you have to get the inflammation to calm down first. Let that inflammation clear out. One of the best ways to do that is through movement. And my favorite form of movement, if you're able to, is walking. Walking is natural traction for the low back. And it's a little bit better than sitting on a bike or on a rower for those with low back injuries. Help clear out the inflammation. That's what I like to do first. So once you're kind of past that stage, maybe the back is now you're not in writhing pain every day.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's time to bring more stability to the back. So this is where we're going to get a little bit of the like McGill's Big Three with like a bird dog, a side plank, and a curl up, using some of those methods. And there's a lot of ways to modify that / treat that more. Some people need to scale up, some people need to scale down. So depending on where they're at there. So eliminate the pain triggers, bring stability to the back. After the back is stable, and some of this we can do at a combo depending on the client. Um, After that is done, then we start addressing other things. So hips, ankles, knees, possibly hamstrings. Hamstrings, a misconception is a lot of people want to stretch them and get that out, but hamstrings are going to bring stability to the back if they're tight. So you don't want to stretch them out too soon because you just have instability. So it depends on where they're at. So let's say now they're out of pain. How do we train? Like how do we be athletic first? Well, uh, always first start with their goals, whatever their goals are. Do you want strength? Do you want power? Do you want just longevity? I'd say majority of my clients right now are seeking longevity and just general performance. They want to feel better. They want to still have some athletic. If they want to play a pickup game of basketball, they want to be able to do that without hurting themselves. Um, so we do a lot of loaded or weighted exercises that don't necessarily load the back. So that can look like split squats. That can be like replacing your deadlift with a Nordic curl or assisted Nordic curl variation and a hip thrust. If you are looking for a little bit more power, and something that a lot of people forget about as well, too, to stay athletic is plyos. How many people don't have like a plyometric anything programmed into their program? So I like to do some plyos every day, or some clients do better if they do a specific, like almost an athlete day, I call it, where you're training to be athletic and then you're training for your strength. So
Sure.
yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I think a lot of times, even with the plyometrics, it's, being athletic is not necessarily just about accelerating, but it's decelerating and learning how
Yeah,
to
that's huge.
find athletic positions once you're, in that deceleration position. So, yeah, I totally agree. So how do you accommodate for, I'm assuming most of the time, if one of your triggers is going to be compression, which, your back
Mhm.
to some, obviously is supposed to know how to be compressed. It's not supposed to have shearing forces. We know that. But
Yep.
sometimes too, like a back rack can be really, irritating. So do you just typically opt for a front rack position for most of those? Okay.
Yeah, I favor the front rack position more
Mm-hmm.
for the back. You get a little bit, more strength. It's further away from the center of mass, right? So it's not directly loaded on the spine. So you're going to train your extensors and stuff to stay upright and balanced a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I do favor the front back or the front rack if I'm doing more strength work for athletes. Um, if they have access to it as well, something like a belt squat
Belt
is
squat. Yeah.
awesome. Belt squats are great, but a lot of side loaded stuff as well. You can like a heavy trap bar.
Mm-hmm.
I love a trap bar because you can get a lot of weight and you've got a more upright posture.
Mm-hmm.
I find a lot of benefits. There's a lot of stuff that you can do with the trap bar. That's a squat variation, a hinge variation.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of single leg movement as well. So
I'm assuming you probably add in a lot of farmers carries and unilateral farmers carries too.
tons.
Yeah, that's our usual go-to, and that's my usual go-to, especially for anybody who has any trunks instability issues. Also great for pregnancy and postpartum because they also
Yeah.
have trunk instability issues.
Um, so a big thing that I'm still dealing with right now is that proprioception, that ability to like counter out, that balance and catch your balance at all.
Mm-hmm.
So banded single arm carries, you can do them by your
Mm-hmm.
side, you can do them over your head, but that instability is going to help retrain the core to balance itself. I
Mm-hmm.
am right leg dominant, and still to this day, I am more athletic with my left foot than on my right foot.
Mm-hmm.
My trying to jump on my right foot, anything with my right foot is it's really bad now. A single leg squat, a skater squat, which is basically like a pistol squat, and you can touch your knee behind you instead of the leg coming out from you.
Yep.
I can do skater squats on my left leg all day long. It is hard for me to do one or two on my right leg still.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something I'm currently working on. I'm trying to build just that whole neural pathway, the coordination, everything
Mm-hmm.
still there. So a lot of banded carries, things like that help a lot.
Cool. So I know you said that you don't do a lot of Olympic lifting because it's super dynamic
Mm-hmm.
and it's obviously a power-based movement. So how would you program a power-based exercise if you're kind of working around, maybe your clients, living with, low pain, maybe a 2 out of
Mm-hmm.
10, 1 out of 10, and you want to start incorporating more dynamic and acceleration, deceleration, those things. Besides plyometrics, what are some things that you like to add in?
Yeah, so it's not like I do love the conventional lifts as well, like a clean, a snatch, all of that. Just having that barbell out in front of you, if you haven't practiced with it, or if you're
Mm-hmm.
not really good with your technique, if you don't have your technique locked in,
Mm-hmm.
you do stand a higher percentage chance of tweaking your low back, right? So anything I can do to get it side loaded or like a dumbbell or kettlebell variation
Yep.
is really good. And then if for anyone who is really trying to go further than that, I like a trap bar jump or trap bar deadlift jump. Those are
Yep.
great. And then if someone wants to get back into the cleans uh, with a standard Olympic bar, I do have a progression that we'll go through. A lot of it starts with the front rack squats and hang cleans. I find a lot of my clients will see success starting above the knee. So starting hang cleans,
Mm-hmm.
those kind of variations, or a shoulder to overhead, uh, really good.
Yeah.
Versus a lot of the back issues come from the floor until the bar gets over your knee.
Mm-hmm.
So even just elevating it a little bit can help a lot if someone's really trying to get back into it. I will
Yeah.
say most of the people who are just training for longevity, though, are not super interested in doing that. So they get so much out of a kettlebell snatch or a dumbbell
Mm-hmm.
snatch, or even just a dumbbell loaded jump or a plyo jump.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And how's it going? I guess for you, have you been running? Are you good to run? Are you not ran?
I
So how's that going?
I started running my first little bit about 2 weeks ago, and it's been
Okay.
about, I mean, yeah, it's going on 2.5, almost 3 years, and
Hmm.
yeah, it's kind of a struggle.
Yeah.
My running plan. So I used to run 70 to 90 miles a week. I mean, I was up there in volume, right? Like very familiar with running, and now I do a 30-minute workout running, and of that 30, maybe 14 of it is actually running. So it's
Hmm.
run, walk, variations, something like that. So yeah, it's changed a lot for me,
Yeah.
and a lot of it is the coordination, the pain. I am kind of out of pain, but I'm still not back to where I was like 100%. But I'm definitely like I know now I'll get there for sure. So
Yeah. Yeah. Have you dove down the rabbit hole with like running gait and different shoes and landing patterns? I'm assuming you
yeah,
have. That's why
I
I'm asking you about it.
I've definitely gone through the rabbit hole. I have got my like Vivo barefoot shoes on
Nice.
right
Okay.
now.
Yep.
Can you
So yeah,
see?
you're.
I've got
Oh my
holes in
gosh.
them.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Um, yeah, I love the barefoot shoe. I do think puts the back in a better position for daily walking. I'm not a huge fan of barefoot long distance running or even just cardio. I like a flat, so like the ultras. So
Hmm.
ultras are a zero drop shoe, but they're not barefoot, right? They have a little bit of cushioning and stuff. I really like those a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I'd
and
say I
then
primarily run. Well, lately I haven't been in my ultras because my Achilles has been kind of bothering me.
yeah,
But
that's
yeah, yeah, I was in ultras for a long time. I moved into a topo recently for like my trail stuff. It has a 4 millimeter drop, which has
yeah.
been a little bit easier,
I
But
like that. The
yeah.
I, so I maybe I can send this one to you later, but I read a new study talking about the Achilles, specifically for runners and for people recovering from that. And the common misconception was that running is like a small little plyo, and if you do it over and over again, you'll build that Achilles strength. And what they found recently is that's not true. You don't build your Achilles tendon when you do that. There are other ways to actually get a tendon response
Hmm.
that don't come from running. So it's a misconception, especially as you get older. Like that your tendons are going to be strong and that your bones are going to be strong if you keep running. And neither are true, but there are ways to train it properly. So, but yeah, so the ultras, the 0 meter drop shoes, can be kind of a stressor on the Achilles. So definitely, if anybody's looking at getting into those, take it slow for sure. Know that you're not actually improving the Achilles. You can improve the muscles and everything around it, but the Achilles itself, not necessarily.
Sure. Yeah, I think a huge pillar that has really shaped how I like to coach and program is tendons really do like to be loaded,
Yeah.
and if someone's in pain, then isometrics are always the way to go. But really, to build tendon strength and to have not only a hypertrophy response but also hormonal response, to have
Mm-hmm.
your body say, oh, there's lots of time under tension in this particular area. We're going to send all the good nutrients and oxygen to go and repair the site. You have to have a long time under tension, which usually means the slow eccentric. So
Yep.
kind of going back to maybe your programming, do you like to do, I know it's obviously the classic triphasic training, but do you like to do the isometrics? It sounds like the McGill 3 isometrics into eccentrics, how you like to manage eccentrics, and then obviously concentric. And so eccentric normally just means the down, quote unquote, down portion of the movement. Concentric is usually, or eccentric technically means that the muscle is being loaded with a lengthening position, where
Mm-hmm.
concentric is where the muscle is shortening, and sometimes on the up position most of the time. So how do you manage those, in your perspective, isometric, eccentric, concentric within a back rehab program?
Yeah, so I program those actually in my actual training splits. So I've got two programs that I typically run. One is called Thrive, one is called Grit. Thrive is for more of the everyday athlete looking for longevity, and then Grit is for my athletes who are trying to perform at higher levels, your CrossFitters, your military, fire, police, all of that. And I do that in there. I take them through phases. So,
Mm-hmm.
for example, on a 3 to 4 week stretch, let's say a GHD, I'll have them doing a back extension iso hold, where they're just holding that extension with a plate loaded at the chest.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll do it for time. So they'll start building 30 seconds, 45 seconds, 60
Mm-hmm.
seconds over the course of 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Now, after that, they don't even know it, but they're progressing to the next thing where
Mm-hmm.
they will take that back extension and I'll have them start going down to the bottom and they drop the plate at the bottom and they bring it up. And then
Mm-hmm.
you can just repeat
Yeah,
that.
for the eccentric. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so we go through those phases until they're going through the full range of motion, loaded the entire time. That is one method I use. Another that I really have found that is awesome for back injuries is accommodating resistance.
Mm-hmm.
So anyone who's listening, what is accommodating resistance? It's essentially if you take a band or a chain and you apply that to your barbell or any movement pattern. So let's take a squat, for example. If you place your bands at the top of the movement when you're standing straight up, the bands are on the barbell, you get the most resistance at the top. And also that's when the spine is essentially it's stacked on top of each other. It's the safest. And as you squat down to the bottom, the tension on the band is coming off. If the load is getting lighter, therefore it's a little bit safer on your back. And then as you come back up, you get more resistance. So that is really helping a lot of people right now move through essentially their recovery process and get them back into squatting and back to where they were. So yeah.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. We do some, assessments when guys in process at work, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
It's what we do. It's part of our contract that we have to do.
Yeah.
And one thing that I have done for a while is testing them on a Sorensen hold, that
Mm-hmm.
GHD,
Yep.
isometric. And, if you've got a strong back, you should be able to hold it 2 minutes. And I think even when I do it, I'm only maybe at 45 seconds, really. So it's gnarly.
Yeah. So one of the things that I'm working towards right now is 60 seconds with 50% body weight,
Okay.
which is hard. It's very
That's
hard.
really hard. Yeah.
And I'm not there yet. I'm at probably about 45 seconds with 50% body weight. But yeah, it's building that resiliency. And I'm trying to go
Mm-hmm.
like above and beyond with that because I don't ever want to injure my back again. I've got a like a tracker now of like how long I've gone without a back injury, and it's been basically since Christmas. That's when I got over. Yeah, that's when I got over like the last part of my back injury. So from the start of the year, basically till now, I have had almost no pain, and I've been kind of back to where I would like to be. At least now I can progress and go get better.
Sure.
So
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. That's really, really cool. That's really cool. So, okay, so you're primarily doing, programming for strength training. So what are some of your accommodations for conditioning that you'll write? Do you have any creative ones?
yeah, as long as you can sit, you can get back on the rower and the airbag, which are two of my favorite. There was a really good study that came out that actually shows that your disc can respond, right? So there's two parts of the disc. The annular fibrosis is the ring on the outside, and then you have the nucleus pulposus, which is a fluid-like substance on the inside of the disc. That nucleus pulposus has actually shown to respond to strength training and conditioning. And the study was actually done on rowers. So getting on a rowing machine is actually shown to do a little bit of regenerative, restorative work to the disc itself, which is pretty rare. It's pretty hard to do because there's not a lot of blood flow into that area. So as far as actual conditioning, yeah. All of my training programs go through seasons. And then if I'm working with a client one-on-one, we're working towards their goals. But a great progression to just getting on, let's say, a bike for 30 minutes would be tempo intervals. So tempo intervals, for those listening, 15 seconds hard, not max effort, followed by about 45 seconds relatively easy. So continuing to move on the machine for 30 to 40 minutes. That's a great progression that I like to use. And then, from there, if we're doing power, short bursts of power, longer rest. And then if we're not on machines, if we're doing something else, strength cardio, like a pump lift session, is awesome. People like get really into that. It's fun. So you can throw in a dumbbell incline press with something like sled work. So you can go do your sleds and you can do tricep extensions, pulling that sled. You can maintain your heart rate while you do it. And you have a awesome, 30 to 40 minute EMOM style workout that you can do. And those are great.
Yeah. Do you do a lot of have you pulled from, this seems kind of silly to say that CrossFit kind of invented this position because they really didn't. But do you talk a lot about a hollow position versus a Superman position? Obviously, we know that it engages, the lower ab muscles and the TA and everything. But I'm curious if even going back to that GHD isometric hold, back extension hold, do you work a lot on that hollow position? And if you have a remote client, are you having them send you videos? How do you, because that's pretty tricky to get people to teach.
So bracing in it of itself, doing it properly it's hard to teach, and it's harder, especially being online, to get people to understand how the abs actually work and how to brace properly, and then do all their exercises safely. And the other thing that a lot of people get wrong too is they're scared of the back injury, so they're trying to brace, but then all they focus on is the bracing, and they're squeezing so hard, and then you're so stiff that you end up, failing your lift or whatever because you're so tight. There's a balance there. So cues for bracing, right? I like to teach people you breathe out. So if you put your fingers into your side, breathe out, and then brace the front first, and then try to focus on a 360 brace. That's kind of the general tips. I work with them until they can kind of understand that. But then a lot of people, even myself, will have other issues to deal with. So it's not just the bracing. Sometimes they can get that, but they'll have gluteal amnesia, if you want to call it that, right?
Yeah,
their glutes just
you about that. Yeah.
Yeah, where their glutes just aren't turning on, and they're getting their quads are working too much. Their hamstrings are doing too much of the work. So yeah, you have to work around that as well. So and everyone is so different. Some people get a lot of activation in the glutes and nothing in the core, and then so it's vice versa. It's opposite for everyone. So it's a puzzle piece to figure out how people work, how they operate, and it's fun though. Like you work with them, you find out what works for this person, that person, and then you go try to fix it. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I think something that I'm personally working on right now is like I've realized that I'm like such a glute clencher, but that's
yeah,
because my back, my core in general is just not as strong as it could be. And that could have been some atrophy because, my lifting has gone down since my running picked up. But I've even noticed like, washing the dishes or it just standing there, my glutes are like squeezing for dear life, but it's really because like my lower abs are so weak. And I've also realized too, when I was kind of coming out of the CrossFit scene a long time ago, different movements, power movements, or hinge movements specifically, at the top of the position, we're always cueing squeeze your butt, squeeze your butt. But in reality, like I was kind of over using my glutes,
yeah,
not stabilizing at all with my core. So looking back on that, I'm like, that's an interesting thing as a coach that I've picked up on. I've changed my
yeah,
language surrounding that.
yeah. It like so you and I are opposites because I would do the opposite where your core would be weak, but my core would be really strong, and I'd be back dominant on everything. I'd be trying to pull everything with my back and
Yeah.
not getting that uh, hip extension
Mm-hmm.
virtually at all, or it was bad. And I
Mm-hmm.
was really strong at the time. Like I grew up in football and all doing all those sports that I was doing, and I was pulling a lot of weight, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
my glutes are fine. Like they
Yeah.
look good, they're big. Like I can do all of this weight and I have no issues. But then like I injure my back
Yeah.
doing, something random, and I was just like,
Yeah.
I'm doing that because I'm not using
Mm-hmm.
it all properly. So
Totally. Yeah, totally. When I was up at UNC, I remember, getting some treatment from an athletic trainer one time, and she was super good. She was really progressive. She had me lay down on the treatment table and she said, put your hands on your quads and I want you to squeeze your butt 10 times without feeling your quads activate. I literally couldn't do it. I literally couldn't do
yeah,
it. And so it was just a lot of just, patterns that I had developed over time. Sometimes I even wonder, like as a strength coach, if I'm just like creating deficits in areas that I don't even know about. Like ideally I'd be able to like be perfectly balanced, but I just don't know if
yeah.
that's just ever going to be achieved. I don't think it is. I think we just can be strong and just kind of take the deficits as they come. But yeah, I just thought that was like super interesting with like the neural patterns that can play there.
Yeah, and I have been really out of balance too my whole life. I would say my lower body's always been so much stronger than my upper body, and that would lead to issues as well. Where I'd be
Mm-hmm.
like in high school, like I didn't get a 200-pound bench press until senior year, but I was squatting, deadlifting, cleaning, like a
Mm-hmm.
ton of weight. It was super disproportionate, and it was like I definitely had a weak core and a weak upper body, but my like quads just made up for
Mm-hmm.
everything back then.
Yeah, no, totally. Seriously. Yeah. Okay. So you take on remote clients. Talk a
Mhm.
little bit about like the logistics and just like background of ProSpine. Obviously, we know your story, but just talk a little bit about how you work with people.
Yeah. So most of my clients are on one of my two programs. I have a third one coming out at the end of the week. I'm
Nice.
like super busy with doctor's appointments and stuff like that. So it should be the end of the week. And that is my actual back recovery program. And the point of that program is to take you through all the different movement techniques and methods that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
So that way, if you're trying to go to a physical therapist or you're going to a chiropractor and it's this physical therapist only does the McKinsey method and it's not working,
Mm-hmm.
then you can get on this back recovery program and it'll just introduce you to everything. It allows you to get back in the gym, train,
Mm-hmm.
and hopefully figure out something that kind of works for you. So that way you can get off of or out of pain and then back to training. So that's my newest program coming out. That one will be called Back to Fit. You can find all of this on ProSpineFitness.com. But then my other two programs, Thrive and Grit. So Thrive is for most of my everyday athletes. So people who want to lift and look good and lose weight generally, and feel better, have their health and longevity. So it's an app. It's a fitness program. There's 6 days of programming on there, and each one of them can message me individually, and I talk to them, and I make recommendations on how to tailor the program for them. So several people I have are, professionals. They travel a lot for work. There's no way that they can get in the gym 6 days a week. So I tailor the programs on the app so that way they're in the gym 2 to 3 days a week. What's the most important thing for them to do? What injuries do they have? And so that all that gets worked out on the app. And then for one-on-one clients, that is like much more in depth. I'm checking in with them every day. I'm looking over videos of them moving. I'm getting assessments of their pain, their injuries, their stress levels, where they're at mentally, how much time are they actually in the gym, how much do they want to train, and everything's tailored toward their goals and stuff. But again, that's just a custom program that I make for them, again, through my app. So
Awesome. That's cool.
yeah.
That's really cool. Something I'm sure that like people will wonder about, and so I don't want to make this assumption, but obviously you've opted out of any surgery.
Yeah.
So can you talk about that, which is like a huge topic? We didn't even hit on that. So
Yeah, I know. I was 6 days away from surgery and I canceled it. So it was not easy. I was in a lot of pain. The Army was going to make me go through a reevaluation process if I had the surgery, and then I was going to just essentially be in limbo in the Army with basically without a job for like another year.
I
Um,
guess, sorry to cut you off. I guess that was kind of my next question was, could you have theoretically, hypothetically, gotten the surgery and then just kept your course? Like, would they have let you stick around for a while? I don't know how
um,
it works necessarily.
so honestly, my career was kind of ruined. I was
Okay.
I was so far behind on my timeline that
Oh,
I
got it.
if
Okay.
I if I had the surgery, I would have gotten removed from special forces and sent back to the infantry, and the infantry would have been like, "What do you want us to do? We don't have a
Yeah.
position for you because I'm too old."
Yeah.
And they're like, "Go sit on a staff position until you get out." Like, so that was kind of like the only career that I had
No, that
left.
makes sense.
So like, I mean, it wasn't really an option, but for 2 years, I like had this belief that I could fix this back injury. And honestly, from after 3 months of being in pain, so most disc injuries will heal within 90 days. That's typically what they quote you. Then after 90 days, you'll, if you're working with an orthopedic surgeon, that's when they start even thinking about surgery. Um, I got to that first 90-day mark, and my surgeon was like, "We need to have surgery." And I was like, "No, I'm not doing it." So I didn't do it. I went back. I got myself out of pain through physical therapy, movement, studying, being disciplined with work. Uh, Went back to the Army and was like, "Hey, I need time to recover." Got told no, got put back in training. Made it through a couple of courses. Extremely stressed about my back. I was in a lot of pain until I finally had one like injury and my back kind of broke. Same thing happened. I go back to the doctor. "We need to have surgery. Like, you need to have this." And I said, "No, I can fix this. I just fixed it. I just need a little bit more time." So I do. I go, I repeat the cycle, get out of pain, go back to the Army. And I'm like, "Hey, I need some time to recover." They say no. I go back. I get injured again. Um,
Hmm.
and that was kind of the last straw was, and this is where I was at last time was I got injured. It's bad. It's worse. I go to the doctor again. He tells me I need surgery, and I go, "I've already fixed it twice. I'll go fix it again on my own. I should have surgery, but I'm not going to because I need to move on with my life." And that was kind of a mental health thing. Like, I don't want to have surgery and then be stuck here in limbo with,
Yeah.
you know, no prospect. So it was kind of a mental health decision, a timing decision, and the fact that like I know how to fix this now. I can go do this on my own. Um,
Hmm.
and that's kind of where I did. So I went through the cycle of it, and I was like, "There's nothing out here for anyone who's trying to do this. You can go to your physical therapist and stuff, but like
Hmm.
what do you do if you want to stay in the gym? And that's where, after going through that cycle over and over again, that's
Yeah.
why I made the business. So yeah.
Yeah. Do you ever want a brick and mortar? Like, do you want an actual like facility at some point when you move back home, like closer to home? Or are you wanting to stay remote? Like, what's your dream with it?
I really like coaching
Mhm.
because I like helping people, I like talking to people, I like the social aspect. I love fitness; it's a hobby, all of that. Um, as far as business wise, though, I am going to keep it more of a side business thing for now.
Fun.
So I probably won't do a brick and mortar or anything like that. So I like helping people. So if anyone, like, I'm not here making money on this business, I'm breaking even,
Yeah.
and that's my goal. Like I have enough clients to break even. I break even, and I'm helping as many people as I can with the time that I have available. So that's kind of where I'm at. I will
Yeah.
get other certifications and get more training because I enjoy it, because I really like it, and
Sure.
I'll want to have a little bit more credentials and all of that. But yeah,
Right now.
I really just like, this was a major obstacle, a major problem that
Mhm.
I saw that needed to be solved. Um,
That's cool.
and so yeah, if you know anybody who has a back injury and loves fitness and doesn't know what to do and they're not getting any help, like, send them my way. I'm not trying to take their money. I just want to help them. So
Yeah. No, I can hear your passion
yeah,
behind it. I think that's amazing. I think that's really
thanks.
cool. So again, kind of personal question. So are you gonna try and like work when you move back home, or are you
Yeah.
just gonna take your disability and ride into the sunset?
Yeah. I mean, who knows how much disability I'll get, right? They're going to
Yeah,
say
I
whatever
don't even know
they
how
want to
that's gonna
say.
work. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'll get some form of disability of some sort. That'll work itself out. But yeah, no, I'm in the process now of resumes and job hunts
Cool.
and all of that. So I will, like, there's going to be a gap there from the time I get out to actually getting a job, considering going back to school and getting an MBA and some other stuff
Nice.
like that as well. So if I do go back and get an MBA, this will become my full time thing. So this will be my job while I'm getting an
Mhm.
MBA.
Yeah.
And then same thing, like, once this is kind of my main gig right now, this is like what takes up most of my time, is doing this, and then
Hmm.
it will until I find another job. It's another reason I opted to do the app thing as well.
Hmm.
If you talk to any of the, like, coaches out there, like the business coaches, they're like, don't do an app, don't do a low budget offer because it, like, is terrible for your business. Everyone wants to be a high ticket coach now, right?
Yeah.
That's like the business plan. That, and I was like, no, I want the app thing because I want to make it super accessible for as many people as possible. With, like, let me just put all my time and attention into writing these workout programs, and then
Hmm.
I can really only take on a handful of one-on-one clients because
Yeah.
it's like that's all I have time for. I can't
Sure.
any more than about five, and I'm just going to run out of time. And
Yeah.
yeah, it wouldn't be fair to anybody else. So I do the
Hmm.
app, help as many people as possible, and then a few people who really need my help.
Hmm.
Yeah,
That's awesome. Yeah, taking on clients is big and it's a lot of responsibility, like
yeah,
you want to give them your fullest time and attention. And I've paused taking on clients, outside of it. Obviously, I love working my online stuff, but man, I got 120 to 150 clients at work that I got to program
yeah.
for.
Yeah,
So,
trust me, I know how that goes.
yeah.
Uh,
So, yeah.
so I did work with some trainers there after I got my back injury because it was cool, like the human performance
Yeah,
or
like human
development.
performance teams.
Yeah, yeah. So there's a physical therapist and a trainer, and they both, like, worked hand in hand. They both, like, knew my, like, condition and all. So
Hmm.
I had one of them write me a plan initially at the very very beginning
Hmm.
because I was stressed. I was like, God, I can't load my back. Like, what should I be doing? And this is where I, like, started figuring it all out. So
Sure.
yeah, he wrote me a plan, and that's, yeah, I kind of started with that one. But
Awesome. That's really cool. Yeah, I mean, when you find a good coach, honestly, it's just like a lot about creativity, having these ideas of like what movement patterns your body should and shouldn't be going in, and
yeah,
understanding levers and understanding, when you should be in an eccentric position, when you should be in a concentric position, and you take those and you got to get creative. Um, I I don't do a great job because I try to be like, you know, respectful of people's privacy. But like we've got people all the time I got to get creative for. You know, I've said
Yeah.
at my job, I've had people like break their legs. I've had a guy who had a brain tumor. I had a guy with a botched vasectomy. I mean, broken
Yeah. It's nuts.
fingers. I've had all these things, you know. But at the end of the day, like that's what I started the podcast with. Like, I feel an immense amount of responsibility. The military has pumped tens of millions of dollars into these war fighters, and they're in my hands when it
Yeah.
comes to their training. So I feel like I have to be as creative and as smart as possible, and I can tell that you
Yeah.
feel that same way.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And I also like doing more with less.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's one of my biggest gripes now. I see all these guys that are going to the gym and they're trying to stay in the gym like 2.5 to 3 hours doing like I'm gonna go do this hour and a half lift and then I'm gonna go do this like sprint workout on the echo bike and then after that I'm gonna go do like a 4 or 5 mile run. Like
Yeah.
you can get all your training stimulus in, you can hit all of that stuff in half the
Mm-hmm.
time. So
Yeah.
yeah, I like getting in and out of the gym in like under an hour. Really, you can do it
Yeah,
all.
absolutely. I think tops, like when I'm programming for my different groups at work, they're in there maybe. If I've got some conditioning pieces, they'll be sitting around 60 to 75 minutes. If they're going up to
Yeah,
assessment selection, then they're going to be sitting at like 90 to 120 minutes. But
yeah,
most of the time, you know, if they're just trying to train 5 days a week for the most part, then around 60 minutes, you know, puts them at 3 to 4 sets for their main lifts and a little finisher
yeah,
at the end. And excuse me, most of them are like, I feel great. I feel strong. My frame feels, you know, resilient. I can run. I'm like, shocker, man. You know,
yeah.
isn't it be super crazy? Yeah.
What kind of training splits do you like? Like when you're writing plans for people, what are your go tos?
Depends on the phase. I would say my overarching program that I have that guys at work just typically hop on and that I run Monday through Friday at 7:30. I have a couple other groups. They are it's a Monday, Wednesday, Friday lift pattern with a Tuesday, Thursday run.
Okay.
And Mondays, I usually like to program again, this is like the general one. I usually do a basic strength progression for a main lift. So any type of typically upper body press. Wednesday for Monday. Wednesday will be a hinge primary. That could be
Hmm.
anything from a trap bar deadlift to an RDL to sometimes an Olympic weightlifting variation. That could be like an eccentric RDL with a high pull, you know, position.
Yeah.
Friday's primary lift is going to be a squat pattern. So that could be anything from a front squat, back squat, belt squat, Bulgarian, HEG split squat, just anything like that. And then I like to do functional accessories after the main lift Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That could be
Hmm.
anything from like Turkish get ups, windmills, lots of pull ups. Pull ups for volume is part of their assessment. So I do high volume pull ups on most days
Yep.
or high volume pulling in general, horizontal
Do
pulling too.
do you have them add bands to get super high volume?
I know you talked about this the other day on your Instagram.
Yeah.
I have several different things that I like to do.
Yeah.
Um, Sometimes, you know, again, going back to a general like triphasic example, I'll do hangs, I'll do, you know, chin up holds, I'll do just different things like that. Then I'll go into like weighted eccentrics, like jump to
Hmm.
the top, weighted eccentrics.
Yep.
Sometimes I'll do drop sets. So I'll do weighted pull ups into the last set is banded pull ups for max reps. So I'll kind of track that progress with the thickness of band that they're using. So many different variations. I just
Yeah.
like to switch up. Um, Lots of chin ups too. Just change the hand positioning.
Yeah.
Um,
I love. There's my chin up bar right there with all the
nice, yeah.
different hand grips. Yeah,
Uh,
that's one of my favorite things to do is when I'm working on getting more pull-ups is adding a band across that I can stand on top of,
yeah,
and
yeah.
then
Mhm.
high vol like 4 sets of like 25 because the
Yeah.
banded is really easy. Like I mean, you can
Hmm.
just hammer those
Yeah.
and really like getting that pump in there. It like that's hard to get in the lats. You know, it's very easy to get in an isolation like a bicep or a
Hmm.
tricep or Um,
Hmm.
and I think it mimics the actual movement better than doing like a lat pull down. So
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure, for sure. And I think there's definitely a grip component that's a little bit more
yeah,
intense in the pull up position than a lat bar or a lat pull down for sure. Um, and then going back to your split question,
yeah,
usually, so my guys run, so it's, I kind of, two programs kind of join together. They
yeah.
lift Monday, Wednesday, Friday. They run Tuesday, Thursday, but I want them to actually run or do a cardio piece 4 days a week. So that'd be Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, with Tuesday, Thursday
Oh,
being run components. And then Mondays and Fridays are going to be either a non impact component, which would be like a bike or
yeah,
a treadmill incline walk with a weight vest. And then one of those other days is a sled circuit where it's real
yep,
grindy, 10, 15, 20 minutes, a continuous sled push into maybe continuous box step ups. So that's kind of their cardio piece. So they're doing cardio, you know, 4 days a week, lifting 3 days a week, if you want to
yeah,
see how to set that up.
yeah. I like that a lot.
Yeah, and that works just for their particular schedule. You know, I have some that are training up to go to different assessments, and sometimes they'll start out in a hypertrophy block, which will be a 4 day lift, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, with Wednesday, Saturday being their cardio components, and then that moving into like, you know, after several 12-week blocks, their last 12-week block will be like really ruck and carry heavy and
Yeah,
sled heavy mainly, but that's what their assessment is. The assessment they could go to is 10 to 14 days of like a lot of assault bike, a lot of rucking, a lot of carrying. So I just really try to get that um, done in that last 12-week block. And usually during that last 12-week block, they'll only lift maybe 1 or 2 times a week. So just
yeah,
kind of where they're at personally. But the general one is, yeah, I like the Monday, Wednesday, Friday split. And then I should explain too, Tuesday, Thursday. Tuesday, we do primarily shorter sprint intervals, like high intensity, high velocity, lots of speed work, running form, lots of rest. And then Thursdays we do a lot of threshold repeats with short rest at threshold pace. And then I would say every 12 weeks we do a ruck together, or a kit run. Just kind of depends on where they're at
yeah,
and how they're feeling. Yeah, sorry, that was like
yeah.
long
No,
answer.
I like that. So yeah, I like that Monday, Wednesday, Friday split. That's cool. And then your progression over like a whole phase of training leading into like a selection. You start sounds like you start with hypertrophy, right? Is that what you
So
said?
different
Hypertrophy,
blocks.
strength.
Yeah, so different blocks. So the if I do like three, so I basically split them up. I do um, phase A, phase B, phase C. And I will always have a primary need, a secondary need, and a tertiary need within those blocks. And I'm
Yeah,
shuffling them through, right? So I know that within the first phase, phase A, I need to get their body as strong as possible,
yep,
while also building a low and slow aerobic base. So in phase A, I will do primarily starting off with tempo eccentrics, within the weight room, sets of 12 to 15. So lots of volume, but I'm getting a really high stimulus with very low intensity running,
hmm,
um, just to kind of build that foundation. The secondary on phase A is going to be the running, and then the tertiary is going to be the loaded carries.
yeah.
Um,
I like
and
that. I
then
like that so
those
much.
shift one phase. So then when I'm in phase C at the end leading up, they're doing their primary is loaded carries and rucks, secondary run, tertiary strength. And at that
Yeah,
point, they're strength training 1 to 2 days a week and they're doing like 5 doubles. So at that point,
yeah.
they're in a very power strength portion, but very, very low volume strength training because they don't need that time on their legs.
Yeah, I love that like that whole training progression because the strength is only gonna make them more resilient for everything else later on. And
Mm-hmm.
like slowing that strength training down, the maintenance for strength is so minimal and it lasts
Mm-hmm.
for so long. So like your conditioning, right? Like your running and stuff, you're gonna lose that 4 to 6 weeks, like you'll start to taper off. But
Mm-hmm.
strength stays around for like 6 to 9 weeks. So
Mm-hmm.
build that strength up first, and then as you get closer to your actual selection or whatever you're doing, yeah, you don't need to be doing all that strength work.
Yeah.
Focusing more on especially those strongman style carries and those type of workouts before a selection is huge. Like that is the full body effect that you get from
For
doing
sure.
it all. And I think you get a lot of trunk stability as well, which I think
Yeah.
like that
It's huge.
carries over into so much. Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
an awesome
No, it's
progression. I love
yeah.
that.
And then yeah, and I think the key, is like most people will get real nervous. Oh man, I'm going to lose my strength gains. I'm only lifting 1 day a week, but
No, you're
I
not.
always tell them like the stimulus is extremely high. Like you're lifting 90 to
Yeah,
95%, and so you're still getting that response. You're still getting those muscle fibers firing. You're still getting a high work output with very little volume, and the time under tension is really what gets people with the recovery, especially guys for sure.
yeah,
Women can handle a little bit more volume, but men with volume, it's like real finicky. So I really try to keep the volume low, specifically in the weight room. Same, that's very similar to college athletics as well.
yeah,
Is unless your frame, is a part of your sport, like maybe an O lineman or a hammer thrower in track and field, then maybe you'd consider doing some more hypertrophy work to keep your frame size large. But the phrase I always use is at least like high end tactical athletes need to be like airplanes. They need to have the biggest engines on the smallest frame. And so being
yeah,
able to maintain a high stimulus kind of manages that frame a little bit. Whereas if you do high volume, not only are you going to break down, but your frame will get too big and then you won't be as efficient within your running or your rucking. So it's dance, but that's what you're kind of working with.
yeah. And that's like one of the biggest issues I see in the whole military community is people not understanding volume over a long period of time.
Yeah.
Because everyone, or not everyone, but especially men, I find
Mm-hmm.
want to be in the gym. They want to get big. They want to have that aesthetic portion. They want to look big and they
Sure.
want to be strong and all of that. It's fun to train like that. There's a little bit of ego there, right?
Mm-hmm.
But doing that over a long period of time and then trying to throw in, if you're going to selection, you're going to try to throw in high volume running and sprints and
Mm-hmm.
all this other stuff on top of it. And
Yeah.
it's like more is not more. Most of the time, like less
Mm-hmm.
is more. But then how do you program that over time to
Mm-hmm.
actually go achieve your goals is critical, which is why I think it's so important to work with a coach. Having someone that actually like understands that programming, that progression, and knows that like I shouldn't be doing a ton of strength work right before I'm about to go. So the selection thing is, yeah, it's
Yeah.
totally key.
For sure. And being able to like talk you off a ledge, I mean that was like my biggest catalyst for just hiring somebody out for some of my races that I wanted to do because um sorry, my computer's like screaming at me that I'm gonna run out of battery.
No, no,
So we can wrap it up in a couple minutes. But that's the reason why I outsourced that training was because great, I could know all of the answers, but at the end of the day, I needed somebody there to talk me off that ledge
yeah,
because I could know the answers, but at the end of the day, if I feel like I'm not doing enough or I'm doing too much, it becomes way too subjective.
yeah, I
And so,
agree.
yeah,
No, I think that's huge. I, I remember it was a couple years ago. This guy I knew he was a coach and he went and got a running coach. I'm like, dude, what do you do? Like you've got all the certs and stuff. Like, what are you doing? And he's
mhm,
like, no, like if you're in my shoes, like you would understand. Like I need this. Like the value
yeah,
of having a coach is, I mean, it makes a big difference on actually
huge.
achieving your goals or not. And I see that now. Like if I was training for something very particular, I would
Mhm,
want a coach. Or if you don't have a training partner that knows what they're doing and it's not just like along for the
mhm,
ride,
yeah,
uh, definitely get a coach. Whatever you're doing, a marathon or an
mhm,
ultra, a Spartan race, CrossFit Games, whatever. Just go get a coach, someone to work through it with you. They're like invested in you, in your time, your
mhm,
energy. They want to see you succeed. It like pays off so much. But
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Good plug for both of us, that's for sure.
hey,
Yeah.
throw that in
No,
there.
Yeah. But Hayden, thank you so much for chatting with me today. I know like we've really only talked maybe a handful of times in person, but
Yeah.
um I can, I've said this 3 times now, but I can hear your passion in what you do, and I think it's admirable for you to want to take things that you've learned in your own life and want to steward it in other people. So I appreciate you talking about it today.
Thanks. Yeah, had a lot of fun. So,
Yeah. Okay. So you got a website, you got an Instagram. So like, where can people find
yep.
you?
Yeah. So the Instagram is probably the best spot to find me. I check it a lot. I post every now and then. Link in the bio. You can get in contact with me there. If you're interested in any of the training programs, want to know more, go check out the website. It's all linked on the Instagram. So prospinefitness.com.
Perfect. Sounds
Cool.
good. Well, I appreciate your time and your
Yeah.
experience and everything that you've learned. I thought you brought a lot today, so thanks for doing it.
Thanks. Appreciate it. It was great. I had fun. See you later.
Good. See ya.
Bye.